Hello, everyone. You are joining us live inside the Green Room with PV3. I'm your co-host, Blair Bryant Nichols, and today we've got some awesome guests for you. So let me introduce them both, and then we're going to dive right in. Meredith Viguers was born and raised in St. Petersburg, Florida, and relocated to Central Texas when her husband Jonathan received orders from the Army to Fort Hood. After years in the insurance, banking, and real estate world, she was ready to take a huge risk and start her own business. She's the owner of the award-winning Central Texas catering company, Let Us Do the Cooking, and a certified John Maxwell speaker, trainer, and coach. Meredith's years of experience in the corporate and customer service world have led her to become a passionate about empowering others to discover, believe, and act on their full potential. That passion had led her to her most recent endeavor with the start of Empowered You. She equips entrepreneurs to smash through the ceiling of their limiting beliefs and develop the right team to put systems and processes in place that allow them to grow more profitably with less of their own time. And we also have Mo Bunnell. Mo helps complex organizations grow by scaling business development skills across the organizations and creating a growth-oriented culture. He's the author of The Snowball System, the host of the video podcast Real Relationships, Real Revenue, and the founder of Bunnell Idea Group, BIG, who has trained over 15,000 seller experts at over 400 clients all over the world. BIG's clients have used Mo and his team's Grow Big training to give their experts a system for growth that creates raving fans, gives a comprehensive business development framework, and is fun to use. Mo started out his career as an expert himself, passing all the actuarial exams to earn their highest designation, Fellow of the Society of Actuaries. And today, Mo gets most excited working with BIG's clients that usually fall into two camps: professional service firms like BCG, King & Spalding, and Sotheby's, and service-based companies like Aetna, Constellation Energy, and TransUnion. He lives in Atlanta with his wife of nearly 30 years, his two daughters when they're home from college, and their miniature donkey, Louis Hamilton. Welcome, Mo and Meredith.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, Blair, I'm excited.
Awesome. Yeah, I had to include the part about the miniature donkey, of course, because that is it's a great detail to include. I'm so excited to have you guys. And, I always like to start off asking our guests about kind of how they got their start in the area of this business. So Meredith, let's start with you. I know you moved to Central Texas when your husband was relocated with the military, but you started your own business. And that's amazing. I love, we're going to talk more about your catering company and some of the creative and interesting things you've done. But I want to start with what led you to start moving into Empowered You and wanting to help entrepreneurs and moving away from just being an entrepreneur yourself to helping others do the same thing.
So the moment for me actually occurred about 4 years ago when I distinctly remember walking into my office on a Friday afternoon and just thinking, I'm done. Finished. I'm done. I'm walking out. I don't care anymore. I can't pull another 80-hour work week. And if I sit down at this computer one more time to do payroll and just pray that a few people don't go straight to the bank to cash their check because the cash flow is not there, I was over it. The stress, it was exhausting. And so I remember just thinking I can't do this anymore. Something has to give. And so it started me down a process, right? And I decided to go to a personal development conference and just get my mind right and, thinking, okay, it's stress and I'll get over this. And really what happened for me is one of the speakers, the last day of that conference, said something kind of like that moment you have in church if you're a person of faith where you've heard the same thing week in, week out, over and over again your entire life. And then one day it just hits a little bit different. And so in that conference, I walked away and said, you know what? I have the ability to change my mind about this entire situation. And I came back and I got to work. And that started me on a journey, quite honestly, of thousands of hours and dollars of just really developing myself. And as I did that, the business started to grow with me. Well, as I went through that process and the business continued to grow, what I found when I began talking to other business owners is that I wasn't alone. And I really thought I was. For a lot of years, I thought I was the only person dealing with those issues. And I didn't know any better. So when I had built my catering company, here we were 10 years and 100 employees later, the picture of success to everyone else, I was miserable and I thought I was the only one. And there were hundreds and thousands of other business owners that were dealing with the exact same things. And as soon as we started having those conversations, I realized, I could take all of those hours of my training and all of the money that I've spent and what's worked really well with a 10-year-old company that turned it around for me, and I can condense that process and start helping other people. If somebody had told me that 10 years earlier, my God, how many headaches could I have saved, right? So it was just one of those situations where I realized there's so much that I've gone through. And if I can help someone else eliminate a little bit of that time and frustration, that's what I'm here to do. And I've found that out over the last few years in working with entrepreneurs. So it's just that understanding of what that frustration truly feels like, but then knowing that there is a very clear way that you can turn it around. And even if you're established or if you're newer, you can really change that and go so much farther, so much faster, and it's completely possible. So for me, that experience in and of myself, and then seeing how it's worked for others, much better even than it worked for me, that's where I'm at.
Love that. And Mo, I imagine that resonates with you too. You got to the highest designation in your field, and then you decided to start your own company. So take us through, what was your thought process, and what was it like making that pivot to starting your own company and helping others grow their career beyond what they might have imagined as possible?
Well, gosh, that's a great setup, Blair. And Meredith, I feel like I've known you forever, just through that story and our prep beforehand, because my moment, that shift you mentioned, Blair, started in a moment of pain, just like yours. It's amazing how moments of pain can be bad, but great afterwards. And my moment of pain, Blair, to your point, was the month I passed that last actuarial exam. 24 of these things, right? We wanted to be an accountant, but didn't have the personality. Those are the actuaries out there like me. And I passed the last exam. It takes about a decade to do so back in the day. And then that very month, I got promoted to a role where I was asked to bring in business and lead really, really big client relationships at this big consulting firm I was at. And I went to my boss that morning and said, hey, where's the manual on business development? I had been used to studying actuarial stuff. So I thought there'd be like a tome of information of here's how you develop relationships and things like that. And I wasn't prepared for his reaction. He laughed at me and he slapped me on the back and said, Mo, there's no manual. Just treat the client right. You'll do great. Maybe we'll get you a mentor. And so I attacked that fear of failure, fear of I don't know what I'm doing, fear of why did I leave that comfortable thing I liked to do this thing that I have no idea what to do. And I attacked it like an actuary, and I studied. And over the next couple of years, I went from working too much, having okay results, but knowing I could do better, and not having a lot of fun, honestly, to after I had a system, working a reasonable amount of time, getting ridiculous results, and absolutely loving what I did. And it was through that, Blair, that I realized I wasn't just in love with business development and helping our clients. I was in love with teaching other people how to do business development. And then that, about 15 years ago, left and started Bunnell Idea Group. And from that point, we've trained, like you mentioned, over 15,000 experts, literally on every continent around the globe. So it's super, super, super fun stuff.
Love that. We've had so many amazing entrepreneurs and business owners on this show. And, I always feel like part of the core DNA of being an entrepreneur is wanting to be your own boss. And for a long time, entrepreneurs, they're very self-reliant. And solopreneurs, there's tons of them out there. But Meredith, you found that one of the keys to actually building a business was creating your dream team. So tell us more about how, getting out of the head of being self-sufficient, solopreneur, and helping people move into imagining their dream team and building a business that can support that.
Yeah, so this is probably one of the scariest, but also most important elements of being a small business owner specifically is, when you start that business, you're everything. And so in that right, you are your company's biggest asset. You know how every job description works. You know how to do every piece of that puzzle. Because of that, you become your company's biggest liability. Because until you can turn those things over to someone else, you are fundamentally getting in the way of the growth of the company. Because it can only, I'm here to tell you, I promise you, you can only work so many hours in a week, and I've tried to work them all. You can't do it all yourself, you know? So what happens in this process is that a lot of entrepreneurs get really scared because they want to find them. And so they're out there looking for that person that can do everything that they can do. Mm. And when you really realize that you have the potential to be the liability in that process, you can say, okay, guess what? Me, 100% is not out there. It doesn't exist. No one can do it like you do. They're not going to do everything the way that you do. And that's okay. So one of the things that I talk about a lot when I talk about building your teams is the 5 biggest mistakes that most small businesses make in hiring, because most of the time we can identify with those mistakes first and then learn the lesson from them. One of the biggest ones is hiring for skill and not for value. So the first thing I talk about with a lot of my entrepreneurs is when you're going out there and building that team, you can find about 70 or 80% of the skill in that person, but when you align the value, you bring a partner into your organization. And when you've got people who line up with you on a value standpoint and you bring a partner in, you can teach skill. And realistically, if you're here and listening to people like us, it's because you're already at the top of your game, right? So I'm assuming that you're the best at what you do. And if you're the best at what you do and you bring in someone who matches your value and has 80% of the skill, you're still better than everyone else in the marketplace. So it's okay to bring on those people who really align with you, and then you can teach them as you go, but you got to get out of your own way first.
I love that. You know, that process and getting that mindset shift is so important for entrepreneurs. And Mo, when we talked in our pre-call, you were describing kind of your 3 levels of growth that you take people through. So why don't you walk us through that and share how you bring people through a similar process of discovering how they can actually, you know, better leverage their time and grow a team.
Yeah, of course. And it builds on what Meredith talked about. The 3 big things we see for the folks we work with, which is people who have one foot in the delivery of some complex services. Maybe they're a lawyer, a consultant, or accountant, or they're an account manager at a big outsourcing company or big healthcare company, big organizations like that. If somebody has one foot in the delivery of services, but one foot into the retention and growth of them, that's a crazy hybrid role where you have to have deep expertise, but it's usually, most professionals learn that first, and then they have to bolt on this idea of business development. And that's where we come in. So simple generic terms would be in a professional services company where somebody, level 1, to your point, Blair, is partner. You've learned enough expertise that the organization can trust you to lead client relationships. That's a really big deal. And typically somebody has to build enough business around that or retain enough that they keep themselves busy. That's level 1. Level 2 is when you get so darn good at the business development part that you can keep a team of that first level folks business. So in a professional service firm, that might be senior partner. Like you might have 10 partners that you're keeping busy or helping succeed that are on a younger part of their path to learn business development. And then the third level would be more like practice leader or geographic leader, sector leader, office leader, something like that. And those folks are so good at business development, they can scale it across a whole organization of hundreds of people. So keep yourself busy, level 1, keep a team of people, level 2, keep teams of people busy, level 3. And Blair, one of the things that I thought was interesting when we chatted to prep was that speaking is one of the tools we teach in our methodology, and that you guys are so great at. We've gone to your courses at Advance Your Reach and love them, absolutely love them. Speaking is one of those ways that you can rise up from level 1 to 2 to 3 because you can develop a signature talk. You can get out there in front of new organizations. You can reinforce your message in the marketplace. You can build a personal brand that helps your entire team. And it's one way to scale moving up the ladder in that way. It's a real exciting one and fun one too.
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing that up because that was exactly where I was going to go next is how is speaking also help build your business? Meredith, tell us a little bit about, you know, as you grew your business in catering and then beyond, how did you leverage speaking and getting in front of the right audience to continue to grow and improve your business?
So one of the key pieces of speaking for me over the years is understanding that people want to be part of your story. And so when you get the opportunity to go out there and speak about your business and you do so in a way that lets them in, they partner with you. So I talk about partnering with your team, but I also love to partner with my clients. And so what's interesting is, as I've been working with Advance Your Reach over the last year or so, I've honed this in a lot more, but I didn't realize that there were elements of it that I've sort of been doing all along. And now with the catering company, I will be completely honest, it's a little easier to get in front of your ideal audience because everyone eats food. At least I'm assuming they do, right? So fortunately, with that particular audience, I didn't have to search too hard to find them. I just had to find the ones who were willing to spend their money with me in that process, right? But with Empowered You, what's been really, really interesting is I found that as I talk to people, when I found those audiences of the other small business owners, you know, they just got it. And I know we're on a Zoom call here so that people can see what I'm doing right now, but if you can't, you know, and you start that conversation that says, I remember I was so frustrated. And before I even finish the sentence, these business owners, they're like, oh my gosh, yes, they're nodding their heads because they get that. And as soon as I see that that moment of frustration resonates with them, I know I'm in front of that right audience. Now, unfortunately, for a lot of people in the world, but fortunately for me and my business, there's a lot of people that fall into that category. And so we've been able to help them in different ways. But what's been really interesting is I never thought about speaking to my audience before outside of the moments where I am on a stage or I am on a podcast or things of that nature. And what has changed for me was really taking the topic of speaking and bringing it to every interaction that I have. And so with what I do for Empowered You today, what's interesting is having that signature talk, so to speak, those few minutes where I could sit and talk to someone is how I acquired my most recent company. Because when Desiree came to me back in December, who was renting space in my kitchen and said, I can't pay my rent, I was able to share my talk with her, talk about my frustrations as a business owner, take her through the process of what I do with other entrepreneurs. And in the midst of COVID crazy, she and I put some systems and processes in place, brought in the right team members, and grew that honey company by 300% in 4 months. So that talk and the idea of speaking to an audience has become a much bigger part of everything I do in business because my perception on what that speaking process looks like has changed drastically.
Love that. And you're, you know, living proof of how powerful that can be for small businesses and business owners. And you've helped a lot of them. But Mo, I know you also work with large organizations like we mentioned in your intro. So people may not think about, you know, being an entrepreneur within an organization or growing their career within an organization in the same way. But how do you approach that? Is it the same approach, or what are the nuances that are a little bit different if you're trying to grow within a large organization to really advance your career?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I was just on a Zoom call with a partner a couple hours ago, and we were talking about the parallel between business development and, in general, more broadly, influence. So a lot of times at these big organizations we go through, because the internal functions like IT department or HR or finance or things like that, they'll hear about our work as we work with the client-facing roles and all the pyramid that reports up to, through from them. And the internal functions will say, hey, can you do a talk on how to communicate better using brain science? Like, yeah, sure. Or could you give a talk on how we can prioritize our internal relationships for the folks that we serve? No problem. So everybody in an organization, everybody, and the higher up you go, the more true this is, everybody's in the business of influence. They're in the business of helping people, being proactive, trying to ladder up their ability to help others. At its core, that's what business development is. So if people can learn these skills of sort of how to proactively manage their opportunities, how to proactively manage their most important relationships, and most importantly, how to proactively manage themselves, being able to say no nicely, something we teach, to the things that aren't as important to their future success to free up time that is, those are the same skills that work for client-facing roles, our core audience, that are true for anybody that's an executive inside a big organization.
I love that. Learning to say no just as often as, the people that instruct you to say yes to everything is just as important. Managing your time, such a key element. And Mo, I know that you have a book, The Snowball System. So imagine that's all around the system that you take people through. So tell us a little bit more about the system and, give us kind of an overview on how you apply that to various businesses.
Yeah, no problem. And I'll maybe give some tips and tricks to the audience too. I think there's three differentiators for us. One is the system's comprehensive. So it's going to teach everything somebody needs to be positive and proactive and helpful and influential to others. Literally everything from reaching out and meeting somebody for the first time, all the way through developing a relationship advantage to creating demand, overcoming objections, getting a yes, things like that. So that's a big thing. The second thing that's interesting is it's all based in science. So at this point, over 150 great peer-reviewed studies are part of the system. So it's all based in science. And the last thing that's interesting is it's about being authentic and always being helpful, always having your client's best interest in mind, as opposed to the weird, cheesy version of selling, right? Where I've got stuff and I'm pushing it on you. This is all about the flip of that, being able to be serving others and helping them succeed. So if people learn an entire system like that, the little tip and tricks that I can help with are get the opportunities out of your head and get them written down. We've got very specific tools to do that. Not only just writing down the opportunities, but knowing where you're at in a scientific process and writing down what the next proactive step you can take to help that person or to get a yes. Managing relationships, whereas opportunities, you almost can't have too many. With managing relationships, it's important to write down just who are the top 8 or 10 people important for your future success. Get a small list, and they may not be people you know well now, but they're the people you want to say, my future self a year from now, I want them to be raving fans. I want to go out of my way to help them. So you may know some of them, you may not, but writing down 8 or 10 names and sticking it on your wall and focusing on those relationships week in and week out to be helpful. Then the last thing, managing yourself, we call it a MIT process, most important things. And the simple trick on this, little hack your own habits, is pick 15 minutes once a week. And you just take a look at your opportunity list, you take a look at your relationship list, and you pick 3 things in the next week that you want to hold yourself accountable to do that are going to have a big impact, that are in your control and growth oriented. BIG, big impact in your control and growth oriented. And you just go out and do those 3 things. And if you take a look at both those lists, pick 3 big impact things every single week. It's 150 a year, 1,500 over a decade. And you just create momentum that's unstoppable if you keep repeating that process.
I love it. So you see the snowball effect taking place. That's
bingo.
Brilliant.
You got it. Nice pullback, Blair. Nice job.
There you go. And Meredith, you had mentioned you give business owners how to build the systems to grow their business and also take them through a similar process as they're getting started. So walk us through kind of your process with clients and what you share with them that helps get them on that path.
Absolutely. So what I do is I start with you as the owner. So most of the small business owners that I'm working with have been in business for 3 to 5 years. They've had a little bit of success. They may or may not have a small team already, and they're really in that growth mode. So for a lot of small businesses, it's easy to have some initial success, and then you sort of hit that first plateau. And what they don't realize is the business cannot outgrow the business owner. So I start people with the process of changing your mind. As the business owner, we've got to do that piece of it first, because whether you realize it or not, you have placed some limitations in your business that need to be addressed so that the business can grow. The second part of that puzzle is to develop your people. And I know that most people get a little freaked out by this because they think they need to be a certified coach or they've got to have some training in this area. That's not what I'm talking about. Developing people develops the core value of who the person is, understanding what you value about that person and the partnership that they bring to the table with you. So when you start working on them as a person, you can almost let go of the business development side of it from the standpoint that they'll care about growing that business as much as you do. So you work on yourself and then you develop your people. And once you develop those people, you have to get out of the way. If you don't get out of the way, the business will stall. It will hit another ceiling. And the thing is you've spent all that time and effort developing the team around you. Let them go grow the business. they will probably be as motivated, if not more so than you are, to do just that, because you're empowering them in the process of that growth. And I tell people all the time that I would love to sit here and tell you that, like, I'm the poster child for the right way of doing this. I had to learn it the hard way. We got a massive contract that we were catering a few years ago, 4,000 soldiers a day, 2 meals in the desert. We were like in the sand. Our kitchen was intense. We had to hire 100 new people to pull this thing off. It was a massive contract. And so this was a company shaping thing for us. And the very first weekend of that 30-day field exercise that we were catering, my husband was rushed to the hospital. And when I got the phone call from his fire chief saying, we're on the way to the emergency room, here are John's symptoms, and they sounded pretty extreme at that point, my kitchen manager and my dining room manager literally had to kick me out of the tent to get in my car to go to the hospital, because my first reaction, and I'm not proud to say it, was, are you kidding me? This is the worst possible time for this to happen to me, right? To me, not to him, just to me. And so, it was one of those things where they physically were going to pick me up and put me in the car if I didn't go on my own. I was in the hospital with him for 3 days while they ran every test under the sun. And I had more leaders step up during those 3 days than I knew we had on payroll. And that was a temporary exercise where people were supposed to work for us for 30 days, and that was it. Every single person who stepped up into a leadership role in that time and said, it's fine, I'll take responsibility for this team. I'll help with this in the kitchen. I'll take care of inventory. 3 years later, every one of them is still part of our team today. So when you get out of the way, you make room for people to let you know who they really are. And if I wouldn't have left, they would have never stepped up to the plate that way.
I love that. It's, testament to a great team, and also, how to create opportunity out of crisis, which is where I want to go next. I mean, obviously what's on everyone's mind this year is everything that's going on in the world, and both of your systems and principles, it feels like it applies to, any business at any time, whether there's a recession or not. Like, these are things you can still be doing, and how effective they are at any given time may vary, but they're not going to change just given the circumstances. But we all saw a lot of change this year and a lot of pivots, and you worked with clients that had to make some hard decisions, and you had to help them through some difficult times. So Mo, I want to go back to you and just start. Share with us a little bit about, when COVID hit and things started happening, what was the reaction of your clients, and how did you help begin to steer them in a new direction, or help them, overcome any of the obstacles that they were now facing, and what are some of the new opportunities that came out of that?
Well, there's a lot, Blair, and it's fun to share because people are still working through that journey right now. So what the biggest thing, I'll start with a big thing, and I'll give 3 trends that we're seeing, and I'm going to apply it specifically to speaking because there's so many people watching that either give speeches or line up speakers. And the big thing that changes from a mindset perspective is the folks that we saw the most successful, and they're really reaping dividends now, were the people really early on that said, this is not going to change. And they took it a really, really extreme viewpoint. And while they may not have believed it, they said, this is never going to go away. And we would coach people through that. Just assume what would you need to be true to be successful if COVID never went away, ever? Well, the folks who made a switch right away, because they felt like if they take that extreme view, whether they believe it's really true or not, of course we don't believe it's true, but the folks that made that mental switch and actually started pivoting to digital work, to giving speeches online as an example instead of in person, that started doing the things that are easier to do now. It's easier to be a little vulnerable. It's easier to pop on a Zoom call and meet somebody in India if you're in New York now than it was, years or just a year ago. That would take 2 weeks and 2 months to orchestrate and 2 weeks to do. Now you can do it tomorrow if you want. And you can be vulnerable with that person and ask how the weekend went. And it's not a throwaway question. You actually 10 minutes later, you're still talking about the weekend. We can bond with people more. So at a high level, the folks who made the mindset switch and they said, hey, I'm going to grab onto the things that are easier now and do more of them, and quit complaining that I can't fly to New York and take people to the fancy steakhouse or whatever they used to do. They're the ones being successful. From a speaking perspective, we're seeing 3 big things really work well. And this hopefully will work with everybody in your audience. One is speak more. The professionals in our network that are speaking more, they used to have to fly somewhere, give a speech, fly back, it'd take 2 or 3 days. They're going to a conference. Well, now they can give 3 speeches a day on Zoom and not have to travel at all. So 9 in 3 days instead of 1. So it's really more powerful now to get on Zoom, convert to digital, and start meeting new people that way. That's big thing 1, and it's working like crazy for people that are doing it. The second thing, and I think this is interesting, is I think these days it's easier to dial up the engagement. What I mean by that is video is incredibly powerful. PV3, unbelievably good at video, right? We all know PV3. That guy is insanely good at connecting. What we're seeing work really well in this world is to develop a video series, like 2, 3, 4, 5 videos that you send out to the audience ahead of time. Maybe they go daily for 4 days or whatever. That exposes the audience to the speaker. Maybe you give a couple tips or a couple worksheets to go through or things like that. And then when they arrive at the live version, on Zoom or whatever, they are primed. They cannot wait to hear that speaker. They feel like they already know them. If there's an open Q&A, you have a lineup of questions. Whereas if you hit a group cold, nobody ever raises their hand. So the ability to combine like a PV3 style video series with a live event, incredibly powerful. The third thing I'll say is, which is really working well, is make an offer to go from the one-to-many experience to one-to-one and do that in your presentation. I'm seeing the percentage flow through rates for those, for our speakers that are, we call it a give to get offer. Chapter 5 in Snowball System goes over it, but making some offer to be helpful for a specific subset of the group that's your perfect clientele, making that offer and being able to put a link in a Zoom chat or something that's easily clickable. We're seeing the flow through rates for the folks that that are our clients that are speakers much higher than live events, because people aren't running off to the next session 3 doors down. They can click on that link, hold it in their browser, and come back and revisit it. And the flow through rate's much higher for give to get kind of offers. Maybe it's a Calendly link or a free service or a download or whatever. But anyway, those 3 things are working great. Speaking more, dialing up that engagement, especially with the video series ahead of time, and then making an offer to be helpful to extend the one-to-many to one-to-one later, working like a charm. Those people are crushing it that are doing those 3 things.
I love that. And thank you for sharing, because that, is what you've heard us talk about on this show, how digital stages have been so impactful, how they have been better for speakers because you don't have to travel. And every digital event, how they market it is really a digital marketing campaign. And being a part of it leading up to the event, like Mo mentioned, is such a great way to increase the engagement and to get that awareness before you ever set foot on stage, because then people have that exposure. They're already primed to think about what they may want to ask or what they're going to learn. And that's just really valuable. And I'm glad to see that, it's working for all different types of organizations and people in all different areas. Meredith, your story is a little bit different. Your business in catering obviously took a huge hit this year, but you've done some really creative things to pivot. And you've also, been growing Empowered You and had other opportunities. But take us through a little bit about, how this year has shaped up for you, and what are the things that you've done that have continued to help you grow?
Yeah, so I'll speak to this from the other side of what Mo said. As my extroverted heart that needs to be in a room with other people is hurt, right? So I'm ready to be back into physical events. And obviously my catering company, we specialize in large events. We're at our best when we're serving more than 500 people at a time. So clearly we haven't been doing that anytime recently. But what we are finding, not only with the clients that we're still able to serve, but with a lot of the event planners that we do work with, is that for any type of events, when we get really creative and we find a way to get the participants in that event to feel more connected virtually than they did when they were in person, a couple of things are happening. Number one, that we're still able to create moments for them. And ultimately in our catering company, that's what we do. We're with people on the most important days of their life. We're there for their weddings. We're there for their birthday parties. We're there for their engagements. We're there for their anniversaries. We're there for their funerals. We're with them every step along that journey. And for a lot of people right now, they're going to remember the anniversary this year. They're going to remember the birthday party this year. And if you made them feel special in that moment, guess what? You're spending every year with them for the next 10 years, 20 years, and on down the road, because you made that moment count when it couldn't be normal for them. So the event planners that we're seeing that are really making things happen right now, are finding really unique and creative ways. One, I think I mentioned to you, Blair, when we were talking the other day, was, a wedding where people couldn't travel. Literally half the wedding party was diagnosed with COVID. Nobody could get on a plane. It was one of those deals. So the bride and groom and the officiant did the ceremony via Zoom, and they did a toast afterwards where the event planner had cupcakes sent to all the participants. So they all still had the exact same cake. They did their toast and they all took a bite at the same time. It seems like a really simple thing, but the bride and groom were so happy that the event planner reached out to them and said, look, here's an idea that I have. I know this is not what you planned on, but here's something we can do instead. So, one thing that I have coached so many small business owners on over the last 6 months is that even if you are a brick and mortar business and you're a face-to-face business, yes, you can do some things. Our catering company is doing a meal service. It doesn't account for anywhere near the revenue that catering for 1,000 people does, right? But it still keeps the doors open. It keeps our primary staff on payroll. It does the things we need it to do so that we can stay relevant during this time. But what I've been coaching my small business owners on, and this goes back to your audience a lot, is you should be speaking in front of your audience so much that they are sick of seeing your face. But they're going to remember so much of seeing you during this crazy time that the second the doors open, they're lining up to do business with you. Because if you stayed home during quarantine and you were not in front of your target audience, do you know how long it's going to take when the doors open for them to come back? You're going to spend a lot of time. So, we're not out of the woods yet. There's still a lot of things that are closed right now, or they're not back to 100%. So if a lot of your audience that would have normally been foot traffic is still online, get online immediately. Do whatever you can to make sure that they know what services you are offering right now. Because if you're a small business, and especially a traditional brick and mortar company, chances are the service you offered 6 months ago is not what you're doing today. And it's up to you to make sure that your clients know exactly how they can spend whatever money they happen to have at the moment with your small business. And we're very transparent with our audience, and I teach this with people I work with as well. And meeting planners should do the exact same thing. We let them know, hey, we've got some options for you. We're thinking about offering this service, or we'd like to do this for you. Please, please, please don't comment, don't smiley face unless you'll get your credit card out at the same time and spend your money. Because we don't have time to play games right now. We're in a little bit of a challenging situation. And so we're just very transparent with our audience that way. And that, again, lets those clients be part of the story, because in 10 years, they're going to go, oh, I remember that crazy year when all I could do was pick up my lasagna once a week. Those things are going to come back. So it's just being front of mind right now for all of those small business owners, staying in front of those audiences. And then to the event planners out there, create a special moment now, because that will be remembered for a lifetime.
I love that. I mean, I think a lot of what we've been talking about today is about building relationships and building relationships that will last. I know that's a big focus for you as well, Mo. So talking about event planners, this is an industry we serve. This is where our heart is at. And we're talking about pivoting quickly. What advice do both of you have, from beyond this around the relationships and the pivoting for event planners and what they need to be thinking about right now? And even if they feel like they're behind, they can still jump in and catch up. What do you suggest to people in this industry that might have found just the challenges and obstacles too overwhelming right now to get creative and to get, pivoting?
Right. Well, I'll pop in, Meredith. I do have to say that I love your stories, and the way that you communicate is so compelling. And I also want a cupcake. Like right now, all I could think about was a cupcake for like a minute. So Blair, I got cupcakes on my mind because Meredith, this is so compelling. But I think what's interesting about event planners is event planners are sort of our clientele. You've got one foot in a really complicated delivery of services, the big annual partner meeting, the event, the wedding, the whatever it is. But you've also got one foot into finding people to hire you to do it, right? So the thing I would say is, there's some research that shows that people that double down on relationships, and this goes both for just pure advertising, But I think it's even more powerful. This is anecdotal. There's no research around it that I've seen, but it's even more powerful for just staying in touch with people, doing what you can to be helpful. It's the people that do those things in dips, in recessions, when they're not as busy, that come out the other side stronger. The research I just saw from our good friend that's a big stat head, sort of like me last week, as he shared, people that really doubled down on relationships when people can't purchase something, come out on the other side at like 250 to 300% stronger than those who don't. So what does that mean real tactically? Three big things. One is commonality, mutual benefit, and frequency. Commonality. If you can stay in touch and promote the things that you have in common with somebody else, somebody that would love to hire you, but they can't right now because there's no big event. Show that you're going through this together. I'm building off what Meredith said. Stay relevant, stay connected, both on your email marketing and things like that and social media, but really on the phone, like dial them up, somehow find a way to stay in touch. Promote the things you have in common. The second thing, mutual benefit. Meredith, I think this follows from what you said too, is that research that first research, by the way, was by Dr. Jerry Berger in Santa Clara, that people like people that they have more in common with. The second piece, mutual benefit, is from Adam Grant at Penn. And what he found was that people that not just help someone, but get help from them have deeper relationship. In this case, a two-way road is faster than a one-way road. So if we can go out to the folks that we serve and not only help, but ask for help, in times like this, we'll have a deeper bond that'll last forever. The third thing's probably the most important. It's frequency. The science here is called the mere exposure effect, M-E-R-E, mere, not mere like you look into. But the research shows that the mere exposure to something strongly correlates to likability. And that's why I use the word frequency at first. We need to proactively be helpful and stay in touch with, we like to say on a monthly basis, with our most important relationships. Whether they can hire us now or not, if we're proactively reaching out to them, seeing how they're doing, sending them a TED Talk, sending them something funny, sending them a cupcake, whatever it is, but somehow staying top of mind, commonality, mutual benefit, and frequency of interaction, those will rule the day and get you through dark times. And then you'll come out the other side at 200 to 300% your competition.
I love that. And Meredith, we talked also about, it's like Mo just mentioned, it's not all virtual. Not everything has to still be virtual. There's still ways you can connect in a physical way. And I loved what you shared about when you send brownies to clients to reinforce really what your business is all about. So why don't you share a little bit about that with our audience as well?
Yeah, so one of the things obviously I specialize in within Empowered You is helping business owners grow more profitably with less of their own time. And with Let Us Do the Cooking, one of our signature dishes is our triple chocolate brownies. So oftentimes when I'm sorry, Mo, you're just going to be hungry.
I'm dying over here.
Yeah. Get your credit card out, Mo.
I know, I'm ready. Where's the link? I want a brownie. I want a cupcake.
We're working on shipping options. We're working on it, I promise you. So no, but one of the things I often send to event planners when I am looking to speak at their events or things is a box that has some of our brownies in it with just a quick note that says, I used to be the one to shop for all the ingredients, bake the brownies, package them, and go to the post office. Today, you have these brownies courtesy of my dream team. And so one of the great things about that is that there is still ways that you can physically do something for people where they feel connected to you, right? Even though you're at a distance. And that is something that that process was something we came up with pre-COVID, and it just still happens to work with the situation we're finding ourselves in today. But so many event planners too, I think, to speak to what you had said a few minutes ago, Blair, which is, if you feel like you're a little bit behind, or if you feel like you still need to make that transition, we're going to be in the process of change. And I'm trying not to use the word pivot because I'm just over it, but we're going to be in the process of change for a long time. Normal is not coming back next month, probably not even next year, if we're all being really honest with ourselves. And we may not go back to what was once normal. So if you can kind of keep in mind that you just need to always learn something else, you need to always do something else. And it is perfectly okay if you hear an idea or you see someone else do something, put your own twist on it and steal it. Like go make it happen better, right? Do something different with it. But I think that there are so many people who do feel a little bit behind right now. And I've actually talked to a couple of the wedding planners that I work with that kind of feel like they're in that boat. And what we've had to come back to them and say is, look, so many of our events right now are postponing almost a year. You've got a lot of time to get creative. You've got a lot of time to think up new ideas. And if you feel like that's overwhelming, just take a deep breath. It's okay. And for event planners specifically here, use your other vendors. Part of the reason that we're finding different things now is because we do have a group of vendors that we call our Saturday family. You know, the same decorator, the same cake people, the same event venues, the same, you know, for you guys that are in the event planning space, whether it's your hotel people, your banquet committees, your, you know, all of those people, your sound and audio staff, they're all going to have ideas about things that they've seen during this time. So, you know, schedule an event related Zoom call or do whatever you need to do, but rely really heavily on your community of vendors right now, because that's how you're going to come up with unique situations and suggestions. But it is okay. I think a lot of people are rushing because they feel like they're already behind the mark. We don't know what behind the mark even looks like yet. Like, we're still, if you think about it, we're 6 months into this process, but there's a long road ahead. And so it's okay to still be figuring it out.
I love that. You guys, this time has just been flying by. You both have shared so much wealth of information. It's going to take us a while to recap everything for the show notes. But Mo, I know you've got a special gift for the audience. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about what you'd like to share with them.
Yeah, happy to. And this will work both for the speakers and the event planners in this amazing community that you've all built. So we've got a free video course on business development habits. It's bdhabits.com. We'll put it all in the show notes and follow up and all that stuff. But what people get from it is 6 videos directly from me, worksheets, posters, a 100-point self-assessment that lets you figure out exactly what you should focus on next. Super powerful. We literally put hundreds of hours in developing this little mini course. And we want to offer that to everybody. You can go to bdhabits.com to check it out. But we've got a bonus offer for you event planners or anybody who pulls groups together. If you have a group of 50 or more people and you'd like to sign them up, and we've got a process we go through that's foolproof, it works ridiculously well. We'd sign up those 50 folks for you for the course, the BD Habits course, and then we'll give you one free signature talk totally on our dime to recap with the group. So like that idea we mentioned before, where you use a video course with tools and job aids and really mind-opening things that people can learn the science, get the new steps to be successful, stories to help them put it in action and remember it, and then pair that with a live event afterwards where they're primed to learn more. It can be a transformative experience. So if anybody can sign up for BD Habits, if you think that would be helpful for you. If you've got a group of 50 or more that would like to get the live experience, we'll do that on our dime, where I or somebody in our team can lead a live virtual event for you.
Fantastic. And that's bdhabits.com. And how else can people learn more about what you and what you do if they want to just hear a little bit more about you?
Yeah, I would say one of two things. One is we've got to show ourselves, real relationships, real revenue. You can find it anywhere podcasts are. I interview people like Kelly O'Hara of the U.S. Women's National Team, James Clear, Michael Hyatt, Dan Pink, folks like that. That's a free way to do it, in addition to bdhabits.com. The other way, that's $20, is our book, The Snowball System. It was named #1 networking book of the year it came out. It was named one of the top 5 sales and marketing books of the year it came out by 1-800-CEO Read. And that's a really simple way to get, if you want to dive into the complete system, I'd go over to Amazon or wherever you buy books and grab The Snowball System.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mo. And Meredith, I imagine you're going to get event planners hitting you up for cupcakes and brownies, and business owners that want your help getting their business off the ground. But what's the best way for people to get in touch with you and learn more?
Yeah, so I've got a website. It's go.empoweredyou, and it's the letter M, poweredyou.com. And what you'll get there is we've got a free gift for you. It's just a simple PDF. It's the 5 mind-blowing mistakes that small businesses make in their hiring process. It's going to give you just some quick things that, number one, you can identify with if you've made the mistakes yourself or seen them made. So hopefully you haven't gotten to that point yet, but also some quick solutions that will help you around the thought process as it pertains to that particular issue. If you want to connect with us on social media, Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, it's Empowered You. Again, it's the letter M, powered YOU. And you can connect with me there. You'll have the opportunity to join a Facebook community where I just do some live Q&A. What I find works best with so many small business owners is for us to just have a conversation. And so I've got almost 20 years of experience in business, and most of them on the frustrating side. So I have a lot of information to share from that side. But that quick PDF is going to give you 5 things that you can take action on very quickly. And that's one of the most important things that I work with my small business owners on is, look, 5 minutes after we get done, what one thing can you do to take action to move your business forward right now? Before another call comes in, before another email comes in, before you get distracted, what can we do right now? And so these 5 things are going to help you move forward if you'll take action quickly.
I love that. Meredith, Mo, thank you so much for everything you've shared with us today. Thank you for the gifts that you're offering the audience, and thank you all for joining us inside the green room. If you're part of our meeting planner community, please join us in Your Events Matter. It's our private Facebook group where we do these conversations live every week. And you can also find more about Inside the Green Room at anywhere you listen to podcasts, and InsideTheGreenRoomPodcast.com. Check out the resources tab. We've got some free gifts of our own there, and you can reach out. And interestingly enough, if you're interested in talking about Mo or Meredith speaking at your events, you can access them through our stage agencies. So find all that on the website. Again, InsideTheGreenRoomPodcast.com. Thank you all again for joining us. I'm Blair Bryant Nichols, and we'll see you next time.